What's up, everybody? Greetings and salutations. Spencer Kyte here on a rainy Thursday, January 12th, the first edition of 10 Things I Like for the new UFC year. As I said yesterday on One Question, I'm pretty pumped up. It's nice to be back. It's nice to be back in the flow of things. It's nice to be looking forward to some fights this weekend. And it's nice to be putting this stuff back out for all of you. I hope you enjoyed the Fighters to Watch series. I hope over the course of these next several weeks, several months, we're able to get you excited about some athletes, some opportunities, some fights, some various different things. Maybe give you one or two things every week that you weren't necessarily thinking about that gets you a little more invested in the fight card coming up. What we're going to do here, if this is your first time joining us, is just run through, as the name implies, 10 things that I like about Saturday's UFC Vegas 67 fight card at the UFC Apex. Let's start. Let's get right into it. Break out the cue cards for the first time this year. Item number one, the new main event. I said this yesterday a little bit on One Question. I think Imavov versus Strickland is a more interesting fight. I think Nasruddin Imavov is one of the more intriguing names in the middleweight division at this point. Someone to pay attention to as he continues to develop. What he's done to this point in going 4-1 in the UFC, in winning his last three, has been impressive. I've liked the performances. There's also been some, not holes, but some little pieces that need to be improved upon. And I think that's okay. Like, it's all right to look at 27, 28-year-old fighters and say, I see the upside, but I see some things that he needs to improve as well. I think this fight with Sean Strickland is going to be more of an opportunity to see if Naz has addressed some of those things. Strickland over 5 rounds at 205 is a big challenge. Not that Calvin Gastelum wasn't, but I just think the intangible things that Strickland brings to the table in terms of his conditioning, in terms of his pace, in terms of his constant pressure, are going to be really fascinating to see how they work against Imavov or how Imavov responds to them. Because traditionally, thus far, he has been a high output, high octane kind of guy where you get into that third round and he starts to get a little tired. This is his first main event. I like that it's remaining a 5-round main event. And so this is that next step. This is that next test. I talk about it all the time on these programs, on the shows that I put out. I'm all about tests. You want to see the ideas and the thoughts and the hypotheses I have put into action and tested inside the octagon. And I think we're going to get that in this new main event. Item number 2, Dan Ige versus Damon Jackson. As simple as it sounds, just saying one of the things I like is the co-main event. It's the type of fight that this is. That is why it's here. Neither of these guys is going to challenge for gold. And I don't say that in any kind of disparaging, use that as a put down. I am not one of these people, one of these observers, commenters, whatever you want to call us, that looks at it in the Ricky Bobby sense of things. It is not your first or your last, rings or nothing matters, gold or you never succeeded at all. I think you can have tremendous success without being a top 10 fighter. I think you can have tremendous success without ever fighting for UFC gold. I think we've seen people prove that over the years of me consuming this sport, covering this sport, and just generally enjoying this sport. And I think these are two perfect representations of that. Now, there's interesting pieces to this as well, with Damon Jackson on a nice winning streak, coming off the emotional victory over Pat Sabatini, celebrating his brother, the passing of his brother. And Dan Ige just being Dan Ige. Yes, he's lost 3 straight. Look at who they are. They are tough outs, each and every one of them. He is a tough SOB. This is going to be a great fight. And I mention it here, and I make sure to put it here because these are the kinds of fights I adore. These are the kinds of fights I want to see more of. And I hope that more people over the course of the year and over the course of me talking about them and us talking about them here at SevereMMA can get on board with us, can see the beauty of these fights, can recognize that just a really great competitive fight between two well-rounded veterans is a really enjoyable thing. And if you want to quibble about it shouldn't be the co-main event or things of that nature, fine. Have your reasons for wanting to detract from it. Not here to stop you from holding whatever opinions you have. Just here to share mine. And I think this is a great fight, and I want to see more fights like this throughout the year. Item 3. The unofficial bantamweight title eliminator between Ketlen Vieira and Raquel Pennington. I think it's a great fight. Number 2 and number 5 in the division. To me, as I said yesterday, it represents a matchup between the next two logical challengers in the bantamweight division. Juliana Pena has not fought or had any indication of what she's up to since her loss to Amanda Nunes at the end of July. Holly Holm is coming off a loss. She is booked to face Yana Kunitskaya later this year, which leaves sort of Irina Aldana as the only other member of the top 5 who could potentially be in there. She's coming off the up kick to the liver win over Macy Chasson, but she doesn't have a fight booked either as of yet. And it leads me to believe that the winner of this one, at the very least, at the very worst, ends up facing Juliana Pena, goes in and can say they are the clubhouse leader for right now in the chase for the title fight. Now, if you're an F1 fan, you understand that the first person that goes out and wins pole position and is the current leader doesn't always end up as the overall pole position winner. And maybe Vieira and Pennington, the winner of this fight, doesn't remain there. But that's the best case scenario. And as such, I think this is a fight that people need to pay attention to. I get that Vieira's last fight wasn't particularly thrilling, the fight with Holly Holm. I get that Pennington is somebody that has been around for a number of years, since the Ultimate Fighter season 17 with Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate. The first iteration that featured female competitors featured Juliana Pena winning that tournament. And she's fought for the title before, and she's had some struggles, but she's on a 4-fight winning streak. She's looked really good in those fights. Last 2 wins are over Macy Chasson and Aspen Ladd. Everything seems to be coming together for her. Ketlen Vieira has been in this position, hanging out just on the fringes of title contention for a number of years now. I think it's going to be a super competitive fight, and it is a fight that very well could have serious ramifications on the title picture. And for me, those are fights I always want to see. Those are things that always get me excited. Item number 4, an early Nurmagomedov appearance. So Umar Nurmagomedov fought once in 2021, and that was in January. He then fought twice in 2022, but his year ended in June, at the end of June. And so for me, it's as simple as January offering, hopefully, the opportunity to see him 3 times in 2023. I think Umar is one of the absolute best prospects in the UFC right now. He is just outside the top 10. A win here on Saturday over Hani Barcelos could very well get him a top 10 opponent in the bantamweight division, as if we needed another name to be really excited about and think about. Just in that very close group, if not in title contention, but just behind that group, alongside guys like Ricky Simone and Song Yadong and some of the more veteran names that are still hovering in those positions. This is a good test. It's a tough fight, even though Nurmagomedov is heavily favored and he is the ranked fighter while Barcelos is not. It's a competitive fight on paper. In terms of what we've seen from him thus far, it's a competitive fight. It's a step up in competition for Umar in terms of someone with the level of experience at the high end as Barcelos. He may still go out and smash him. He may still go out and run through him. And if he does, this excitement, this anticipation, this hope to see multiple fights this year is only going to get ratcheted up. Item 5, first impressions for the Dana White Contender Series class of 2022. As I've said throughout the Fighters to Watch, as I've said repeatedly on this program, these programs over the years, it's very hard to judge a class early coming into the UFC, especially as of late, because the level of competition, both prior to competing in the Apex and when competing in the Apex, isn't as great as it was in earlier years. The regional scene, in my opinion, outside of a few key promotions where they are making really tough, really competitive fights all the time, or as often as possible, is kind of hard to read, because a lot of men and women are getting opportunities and they're just running through opponents, whether that's they're significantly better, whether that's someone drops out last minute and they can only fight whoever gets put across from them. We're not seeing the same level of competition and tests for these athletes along the way to this point. Those tests are now happening in bigger promotions. They're happening in the UFC. They're happening in Bellator, places like that. One FC, you'll understand. One championship, sorry, not one FC. You'll understand what I mean. But this weekend represents first event of the year. So first look at some of the grads from last season. That includes Claudio Ribeiro, Mateusz Rebecki, and Matias Mendonca, all of whom earned first round wins in their Contender Series opponents, all Contender Series appearances, All of them looked great. All of them were memorable. Like I recap the fights for UFC.com. I cover the Contender Series extensively. I do the previews and the reviews, so I know who these athletes are and I pay attention to them. And all of them stood out. I didn't have to go back and go, who did that person fight? How did they win? I remember these victories. I remember these efforts. Ribeiro faces a veteran in Abdul Razak Al Hassan. Rebecki gets a short notice debut opponent in Nick Fiore of the New England Cartel. And Mendonca gets another component and another prospect and another graduate of the Contender Series in Javid Basharat, who we'll speak about in just a moment. They're good fights. These are good tests. These are good, as I said off the top, a chance to see make that initial read. Get that first look of them inside the octagon, going through a UFC fight week, how all of those things impact their performances. They looked great on the Contender Series. Let's see how they look on Saturday. Item number 6, Javid Basharat is fighting. As I said, he's taking on Matias Mendonca. You can add Javid Basharat's name to my growing list of insert fighter name here is fighting athletes that I will talk about on this program and others. He went 2-0 in his rookie campaign, earning wins over Trevin Jones and Tony Gravely. And those are quality wins to get in your first UFC year. I spoke with Javid yesterday for a piece that will be up on UFC.com, probably already up now. I haven't checked yet. Been prepping some other stuff that's coming down the pipe today and tomorrow. And we talked about that rookie year, right? Ideally, he wanted to fight more than twice. Ideally, as a competitor, you want to have finishes, not decisions. But you look at that strength of schedule, and it's Trevin Jones and it's Tony Gravely. And he said, yeah, I'm happy with it, as he should be. Basharat is someone that I'm high on. I know Harry is as well. He's super confident. He wants the challenges. He wants to push himself. He accepted this fight in part because he wants to be active and he wants to keep moving forward. His exact words were, we put in all of this hard training. Why not be active? That said, he understands this is a dangerous fight, understands that Mendonca presents challenges and comes from a great camp, the Shootbox Diego Lima team, where Charles Oliveira and Alan Nascimento and guys like that train. So going to be prepared, going to be ready to get in there. And so you give me a guy like that is very self-aware, that wants to be active, that wants to be great, and has thus far shown me positive things against quality opponents. I'm always going to sign up to watch that person fight. I'm always going to be excited to see them step into the octagon. And this weekend is no different. Item 7, another look at Alan Nascimento. As I said, a member of that Shootbox Diego Lima team, alongside Mendonca. As high as I am on him, and I do think the potential to be the dark horse in the flyweight division this year, that's sort of tough to call off 2 UFC appearances. And so it's why I'm looking forward to his fight on Saturday against Carlos Hernandez. Now, I can make a good read or a reasonable read off what it means to go to a split decision, and one that I thought he should have won against Tagir Ulanbekov, who I also think highly of, who we've seen have some success. And then a very good win over Jake Hadley last May. And Jake Hadley, someone we think highly of. But it's also just 2 fights, and he's 31. And so you're fighting once a year, you're 31 years old. Did I just see good performances? Am I building it up too much? Am I reading too much into it? Again, always comes back to, well, let me see. It's just about collecting data. It's just about seeing what the fight gives us and making assessments from there. I think Nascimento can be somebody that makes a little bit of a run and has a little bit of success in this division this year, in a flyweight division. As I said at the end of last year, front and center, at least for this first month, but probably more like the first half of the year, especially once we see what happens in Brazil next weekend. I think he can do something, but I want to see it. All about seeing it. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Item 8. Welcome back, Jimmy Flick. Listen, you want to give me a guy that hits flying triangles? I'm going to tune in. Simple as that. I am a simple man. I like Funko Pops. I like books. I like dogs. I like toques. And I like dudes that hit flying triangles. Jimmy Flick in his debut in his lone UFC appearance came out after his win on the Contender Series and hit a flying triangle choke on Cody Durden. And it was dope. Like, it should have gotten more recognition and more discussion in the submission of the year conversation in 2020. Because we don't see people hit flying triangle chokes at this level. Because they're ridiculously hard to hit, period. Yet alone in the UFC, in your UFC debut, against a guy that's already been in there a couple of times. He took a couple years off, said he was retiring. I think he was doing some fight promotion, whatever. He's back. Hopefully that means he's healthy. The passion is rekindled. Welcome back, man. I want to see it. It's a quality matchup against Charles Johnson on Saturday. Former LFA champ, lost his debut against Muhammad Mokaev, won his second fight in a close fight with Zhalgas Zhumagulov. Should be a good fight. Let's see what Jimmy Flick can do. Because I tell you this is one of the things I know about him. Pardon me. The dude never stops hunting. Whether it's ground and pound, whether it's striking, whether it's looking for subs. My guy has no interest in going the distance. He will be out there from second one till the final horn, if it gets there, hunting for stuff. Love it. Welcome back, Jimmy. Number 9, an opening banger. Priscilla Cachoeira and Sijara Eubanks should be fireworks. Neither woman is a huge fan of defensive fundamentals or responsibilities. Like, they tend to enjoy just going and standing in the pocket and being like, cool, we agree, rock'em sock'em robots. Yes, grand, let's go. Cachoeira has 100% lived up to her zombie girl moniker. We've seen a number of take some of your best shots and then rally performances. We've also seen some downside things. Absolutely got to acknowledge them. But the good has outweighed the bad over the last 5 fights. She's 4-1 in her last 5 fights, which is wild considering how it started. There are certainly dozens of possible outcomes here. You can see either woman winning, can see it being quick, can see it being 15 minutes, everything in between. But each and every one of them is entertaining. And for the first fight of the year inside the Octagon, you want to give me a fight like that? I will have my popcorn ready. I will be seated in my den, volume up, TV on, laptop open, ready to go. Let's go. Last one, and then we get out of here. It's go time again. Listen, I like watching UFC fights on Saturdays. Sue me. I know it's the first one of the year, and so everybody's probably with me, but 34 weeks from now, I'll still be here being like, yeah, we get to watch fights on Saturday. I loved the downtime. I loved having a little break. It was nice to spend some Saturdays doing other things, having meals with family, spending time with my niece and nephew, my wife, my dog, just hanging out, watching some football, talking to some friends. But let's get back to my reality, to my regularly scheduled programming, to the thing that normally fits in the Saturday slot on my schedule, and that is face punching inside the UFC Octagon. I'm pumped about this year. I'm excited for what we're going to get to see inside the cage. I think this is going to be a really great year, and I cannot wait for things to get started on Saturday. I hope you feel the same. I hope this little video has maybe helped you get a little more excited for Saturday. Maybe something earlier in the week. Maybe the betting show that's going to come out tomorrow. Picks and plays with a brand new co-host, Mr. Ian O'Neill. Maybe that will get you psyched for Saturday. I'm pumped. I hope you are as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting us here at SevereMMA. Like, rate, review, subscribe, all of those things to all of the channels you can. We appreciate it. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Be good to yourselves. We love you. And we'll see you.